IT.
I love
Fancy,
IT.
even centerpieces.
Ellie loves IT.
Test, test, test. Okay. Test, hello? Hello? Test, test, test. No.
I do it all the time.
Oh,
I
there
speak
you
at
go.
universities and high schools and do sensitivity training for people. So I really love talking to people about these issues. Really, it invigorates me.
Yeah. Feed you. Feed you.
Well, when I had nothing, I still had a voice.
Yeah.
I became homeless in 2009, and I was going to universities to talk about the experience of being transgender and oppression and homelessness and discrimination and incarceration, all those things. It was good to hear the words come out of my mouth in front of people because it seemed like a bad dream.
Yes.
It was very surreal.
Were
And
you homeless, like couch surfing, or homeless
homeless, like
like on the street?
no, I was in a homeless shelter.
Hey, panelists.
Hello, hello,
We're
hello.
still waiting on Ian.
Yes,
Do you guys have copies of the questions?
I have it on my phone. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna say your names. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time introducing you, but we'll start with that first question. Can you share a pivotal moment in your life when you had to stand up for your identity, rights, or community? And I'll say, and please introduce yourself. Okay. And so just say a word or two about.
And it's okay. I have my book with me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Somebody
great.
wants to get it.
And yeah, I think the last time I did a panel discussion, the first panelist I asked a question to, she answered like all 6 questions. It took about 20 minutes.
Step up.
It was great. She had an amazing wealth of information.
She was a lawyer.
Yeah, she was good. I need to reach out to her, but it kind of threw everything off.
Tasting, tasting. Tasting, tasting. Tasting, tasting. Tasting, tasting.
It's a lovely leather dress you got on.
Thank you. TJ Maxx in the States.
Oh wow.
I really do like it. I don't have enough floral.
More floral. Floral's good.
Yeah, see, I always wear plain color. I never wear any. I didn't say never, but I don't know.
Let me check in with Ian. Take care of yourself.
We can start.
Yeah, let's give him a second to check in with her.
Not now. I'm saying if you can.
Yeah. I need to keep her intern. I need to keep her intern. I'm okay, you're responsible for her? No.
I can be a bully.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be a bully for her.
Yes, it's still morning. It's a miracle. You are. It's good. I'm just in person, right? Yeah. So I haven't been here in a while. You know, I've been. Oh. Okay, so I thought I'd come to a party. That's right.
Oh, you did
Works here now, right? So we're on the committee. Friday, we're invited.
Oh, yeah.
I'm free from the
Someone takes a chair.
and the job gets done, but you worry some. I know, but it was
Good thing I had it to sleep on.
I wish I could go along. Please don't get me wrong.
I married a man at 32 and then got divorced after 8 years. I'll be 62 next week.
I'd rather take my whiskey.
Just asked June 7th. I have Even if they didn't pay me, I would still do it. It's an adrenaline.
Your mind. Think about your dumb face all the time. Living in your glass house, I'm outside. Looking in a big blue eyes. Did it just to hurt me, make me cry? Smiling through it all, yeah, that's my life. You're an idiot. Now I'm sure. Now I'm positive. I should warn her. Bet you think that she's so cool. Kicking back on your couch, making eyes from across the room. Wait, I think I've been there too. She did it get you off. Taking down her hair like, oh my god. Taking off your shirt, I did that once. Or twice, no, God. But I think I like her, she's so fun. Wait, I think I hate her, I'm not that evolved. I'm sorry, she's missing. Sad, sad, boy. Not my business, but I have to warn ya. And you're thinking she's so cool. Kicking back on your couch, making eyes from across the room. Wait, I think I've been there too. You got me thinking she's so cool. But I know what I know, and you're just another told you so, but I know how seasons they change. How could we both stay the same? Put up a shelter, but that never stops the rain.
I just don't make it. I'll drink it.
No matter how much we try, there will always be.
As I'm getting older, I'm getting more and more lactose.
In another life, I'd be yours, and you could be all mine. But I know how seasons they change. How could that have stayed the same? Put up a shelter, but that never stops the rain. No matter how much we try, there will always be pain. You came along, saving time in the surface, risk that we're taking. That's how it goes. End of the story. I want you to know you're always sorry. What's the praise? Crystal, baby. I heard it's bones, and I hate to say it, but that's how it goes. End of the story. I want you to know. I sing the praise. I know that look on your face. It wasn't you, only the change. I wanted more, I couldn't face. I know that look on your face. It wasn't you. Not even saving time to solve the risk that I'm taking. Oh, that's how it goes. End of the story. And I'm sorry.
Good. Very good. Thank you for coming.
It's fine, it's cool. You can say that we ain't nothing, but you know the truth. And guess I'm the fool. With their arms out like an angel through the glass.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see you all here, whether you're here with us in person here at MCC Toronto in our lovely social hall, or you're tuning in to the live stream. I'm glad that you're here. I love when an event is advertised as starting at midday. Does it start at noon? Do we start at 12:15? Who cares? We'll start when we start. I love that. That's the way I like to do it. My name is June Joplin, by the way. I'm the associate pastor here at MCC Toronto, and I just want to wish everybody a happy Pride. Today we're having a very important conversation, not just about aging, which is happening to every one of us all the time, but what it means to age well as a 2S LGBTQIA person in a world that hasn't always made space for us. Aging is not a one-size-fits-all experience. It's shaped by the stories that we've lived, the barriers we've faced, and the communities that we've built. For a lot of queer older adults here in Canada, the journey of aging is profoundly shaped by a lifetime of navigating questions of identity in systems that at times have pathologized or criminalized that very identity. From housing to healthcare, from employment to end-of-life care, the realities faced by the queer and trans elders often differ from those of the general population. And yet, even with those challenges, there's deep resilience found in chosen family, found in creative adaptation, found in advocacy, found in just sheer perseverance. So today, we're asking not just what aging has looked like, we're asking what could it look like? What changes are needed socially, politically, culturally, so that LGBTQ people can age with dignity, safety, community, and joy. We're excited to have that conversation, and we're grateful to have some panelists here who are bringing their experience, wisdom, and heart to that conversation. I will let them say a little bit more about themselves later, but they are, very briefly, Stephanie Walsh. Let's hear it for Stephanie, everybody. Margie Wallace. And Ian McKnight. So before we hear from today's proud voices, our human rights community manager, Kenyatta Barnaby, is going to be offering a land acknowledgement for us. Kenyatta?
Hello, everyone. Hi, Kenyatta. I'm so happy to see you folks out today. All right. So let us begin our meeting by acknowledging that we are gathering on the land that has been inhabited by Indigenous people from the beginning. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Long before today, as we gather here, there have been indigenous peoples who have been the stewards of this place in particular. We wish to acknowledge that Takaranto is the ancestral traditional territories of the Ajubenawe, my apologies, the Anishinaabe, and in particular the Mississaugas of the New Credit. This territory is covered by the Dish with One Spoon, One Pond Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Anishinaabe and the other Nasi allied nations to peacefully share and care for the lands around the Great Lakes. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contributions of the Métis, Inuit, and other indigenous people who have made, both in shaping and strengthening this community in particular, as a country on a whole. As settlers, this recognition of the contributions and historic importance of indigenous people must also be clearly and overtly connected to the collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our communities, and in particular to bring justice for the murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls across our country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenyatta. Our human rights administrative assistant, Erblin Heisey, has a word of greeting to share with us. Erblin.
Hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming. I think Proud Voices is an initiative that we've made here kind of to bring together different communities within the LGBT community and to give them a space to have their voice, to create a safe space to have discussions about experiences needs, etc., of specific groups. And so I think me and Kenyatta this time around decided that for like our Pride Month edition, we would be hosting the aging LGBTQ community. We wanted to create a space where we could discuss the specific needs and experiences, and specifically me as a younger queer person, I thought it was particularly important to look to these people as mentors, the wisdom that they hold. They've been fighting for LGBTQ rights for generations, have seen multiple different political administrations, and have stood strong and have gotten a lot of good work done. And so we thought that, especially for me and for my advocacy and for my generation, I feel like it's very important to be educated about the way that they got things done, and then and the way they fought. And I think that it can inspire us moving forward to keep going. So yeah, that's why we have everybody here today, and I'm really excited to hear it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Erblin. Doesn't our Human Rights Center do a good job putting these together? Have you guys who's been to multiple Proud Voices events? Because I think this is my third, at least my third behind the mic, yeah. And I'm always impressed by the panelists, by the topics, and by the things that we get to hear. So thank you. Thank you to the Human Rights team for putting these beautiful events together. So, panelists, we're going to start with a question that's for everybody together, and we'll jump into some that are more specific. But first, though, let me ask the question first, then I'll do the follow-up. Can you share a pivotal moment in your life when you had to stand up for your identity, your rights, or your community? Now, and also before you answer, if you would just say a word or two of introduction about yourself. But can you share a pivotal moment in your life when you've had to stand up for your identity, your rights, or community? Steph, you want to start on your end, and we'll just move back towards me?
Thank you, yes. My name is Stephanie Walsh. I am a trans woman, and I guess the pivotal moment in my life was in 2009 when my 23-year marriage dissolved. My wife posed a question to me, or a demand that I either stop being transgender or leave. And I didn't know how to not be transgender. Transgender, the word itself was still very new, but I knew I identified as that, and it caused me to become homeless. I left. I had no place to go. It triggered depression and anxiety. I was hospitalized first, and then I became homeless. And then through the homelessness, I found shelters. And at that time, it was very new for trans people to be accepted into shelters. In fact, the shelter that I stayed in second, I was the very first trans woman. And so it was a time of our community trying to find its feet and establish itself. And I was very new at having lost white male privilege and having to navigate the world as a minority, as someone who's persecuted, and as someone with mental health issues. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Margie, and Hi, my name is Margie. I'm a lesbian. I'm married. I've been married for 20 years, and my partner and I have been together for 31 years. So that's the point of my pivotal moment. The first marriage in the church was really a rush for me. It was just so exciting, and it was dangerous in a sense, and people asked lots of questions. People would ask me, well, you would never do that, would you? And I said, I don't know, because it had never occurred to me. I wasn't one of those little girls that grew up dreaming of a wedding with a beautiful dress or something. And when Steph and I decided to get married, it opened up a whole world of questions. Who would I invite? Would they come? People who, in my family, who didn't know that I was a lesbian. I don't know how they couldn't, but they didn't. And I was afraid people wouldn't come. So, and the biggest hurdle for me was my 91-year-old father, My mom had passed on by then, and we had never talked about anything. Nobody in our family talked about anything. It just wasn't a point of conversation. So I went to see him, and I had gone out that day with my sister, bought my dress for the wedding, took it back, and showed him my dress. And he said, "That looks like a wedding dress." I said, "It is." He said, "Who's getting married?" I said, "Me." He said, "Who are you marrying?" I said, "Stephanie." And he said, "No." And he put his hands over his head and he walked around the house. And I was so stressed. He'd had a major heart attack when he was 75. He had a myriad of other illnesses, and I was so afraid he'd have another heart attack. And my sister was like, "Just tell him." And he came back into the kitchen, and he said, "I've got a better idea. You should marry Jim. Jim is a long-term friend of Steph and I." And I said, "I don't want to marry Jim. I want to marry Stephanie." And he said, "But why?" And I said, "I love her." And it was a very tense moment for me, but it was out. It was out. It was done. And I just knew that in order to be myself and be with my partner, who I love very much, we would have to live our lives like that. Stephanie was already there, like years, but I had to come out every time somebody was going to befriend me or somebody I was going to work with, because I didn't appear to look like what lesbians are supposed to look like. So for me, it was a really great moment. That's it.
Thanks, Margie. Ian.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Ian. I work here in Toronto as the Director of Programs and Services at the Toronto People with AIDS Foundation. And I've just been in Canada for 5 years. My whole life has been fighting for the rights. My entire life and my career has been standing up and fighting for the rights of not only myself as an individual, but the communities to which I belong. And I come from Jamaica, where this doesn't happen. And this happens at the expense of many people. And we have buried many people who have been murdered, and countless more who have been savagely abused physically. And that's been the mainstay of my life. And if I'm to say, the standing up part has been starting organizations that say, yes, we are not going to run away from it. Organizations that fight for the rights, that struggle for the rights, all of which are still in existence today, not only in Jamaica, but other parts of the Caribbean. And in most of the countries that you're from, I've had the honor of working in most countries. So that's been the standing up. It's been the standing up personally, using my own privilege to create and make spaces, but also to be able to ensure that even though we do not see immediate change, we keep going at it. And if I'm to single out one very tender moment, when we went to Parliament, a group of us decided we were going to Parliament, and it was unsafe, it was dangerous, it was everything else, but we were going to talk to Parliament. And you know, I walked in there, and there were people I knew. There were some people, I was training to be a priest, I was a good Catholic at the time, and they looked at me as if to say, hold on, what the hell are you doing here with this bunch of other people? And I was proud to be able to say, we're together, we're saying, give us space, make things happen. I'm sharing that experience because the law hasn't changed 30 years later. But every parliamentarian in that room, all 65 of them, were made to be very uncomfortable and know that we're not going to be apologetic about it. And so after me has come several other fighters who are still pushing that forward. Don't stop, ever. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Ian, I'm gonna stay with you. You've mentioned that so much of your life is involved fighting. Can you talk a little bit about how that fight, for LGBTQ plus rights, for advocacy for folks with HIV/AIDS, how has that movement and that fight changed over the years? And I can hear a little bit of it in your introduction, but what's something from your fight that you're most proud of?
Well, when I started in 1990, I was fresh out of university. And in those days, you're young and fearless. It's like, you don't know what. We had zero perception of the real danger that lied before. So we were just going. And, we came out of this socialist activist age that we were going to come at you whether you liked it or not. So we're fighting. And we did. And a big part of our work was around HIV. And at that time, nobody wanted to talk about it or do anything. In fact, it was seen as justifiable because it was affecting, guess who? Gay people. And they should die anyway. So people turned a blind eye. So we worked hard and we fought hard. And the proud part of it is that we were able to lift consciousness around HIV issues in a significant way. So much so that we became the kinds of authorities on HIV, not only in my country, but around the region. And for better or for worse, I'm well respected for that part of the work, Perhaps not so for LGBTQI plus rights, but certainly about HIV rights. And I humbly accept what that has been for me. So I'm very proud of that. I'm proud too because, this is very important, when you sow seeds, they don't always grow at the same time. They don't always blossom at the same time. And we're going to talk about aging because I sometimes tell people I'm a bit of a grandfather. The seeds are coming up now in so many different ways. And it's wonderful to just sit back a little and watch and see a whole new generation just getting with it and making things happen.
Amen. Thanks, Ian. That's a pretty good segue to my next question, which is for Margie. When we think about the changing of generations, can you talk a little bit about relationships that you've had with younger members of the LGBTQ plus community and what you've learned from those relationships and how they've shaped your own journey?
Yes. Right now, I'm a volunteer with the refugee program, and I work with a group of young people, and they really inspire me in their work. They're doing things in their 30s that I would never have aspired to do. The difference is that back then we had no legal protection. We had no safe haven. We had small groups of friends that we would socialize with, and we had clubs and bars and organizations, but they were all hidden. They were in the basement of a building or the attic of another building on Yonge Street. And when legislation came in, when Pierre Trudeau said that the government has no place in the bedrooms of the nation, it was just such an amazing thing. It didn't just center on us, but it included us. And we hadn't been included before. Now I find with the people that I volunteer with, they expect to have the same rights and privileges as everybody else. And they're prepared to fight and work to get there. And it really inspires me to do more. I also have, outside of MCC, we have young friends in their 30s, 40s, and their attitude and behavior is so different from ours. They think nothing of going through a mall and holding hands. And we would never have done that. Well, maybe in Provincetown we would. But we would never have done that. And they just expect and don't settle for anything less. It doesn't occur to them to be afraid. And that's really relaxed me, brought out my confidence, and I love it. I just love it.
That's beautiful. Steph, can you tell us about moments of joy or places that you found community over the years that have helped you feel seen or valued as an older 2S LGBTQ plus person?
Well, I think to speak to it as an older person, I have to take you back to me as a younger person. Back up until I was 23, I was just someone's son, and I was a student, and I was learning, and then I got married, and I became someone's husband, and then I became a father to 7 children. So my goals back then was first to learn, then it was to get out Catholic, so to get married and start a family, and starting that next generation was an amazing part of my life. But then after 23 years of marriage, that it ended in 2009, I now had to find something new to focus on. And what I did was 2009 was the first trans march at Pride Toronto, and so I became involved with advocacy and being more visual in the community, because prior to that I was very much closeted and hidden. And so having to know that I have 7 children out there, and by then some of them were in university, and I was now going into this final stage of my life where I had to do something in my senior years. Advocacy seemed to be a good part, but learning started all over again. And I was forced to learn about homelessness from a first-person perspective. I was learning about mental health issues. I was learning about incarceration, all things that were foreign to me. And it was simply because I put a dress on. And so fighting for human rights within Ontario and Canada became a huge issue, and finding a community, because the internet was very new at the time, so we did find each other, because prior to that we were very scattered. And so it was isolating. I was shunned by my family, but having a community of activists that stood up with us as allies and as other trans people meant that we were creating a foundation to build on. And then I found this church community as well in 2009, and that added to my stability, because I went from Catholic to joining MCC, and where I was very much included and fostered in those beginning years when I was fragile. But then my children started having children. And then I was separated from them for 9 years, and then COVID came along, and then so 12 years later, I started to hear my grandchildren say things like boys are allowed to be girls and girls are allowed to be boys. So within one generation, we had not only found the language to create our own community and find each other, we became language for other people. And we became those people that set the foundation. And I saw through what my grandchildren were doing that the community not only involved the people who were accepting me, but I also had the people who rejected me were now reaching out and coming back. And we created real family and made family of peers and friends. And somehow, without any violence, a lot of threats of violence towards me, but without any violence towards me, We moved from, or I moved from being a white male father to being a trans woman with some legal rights, because we did achieve human rights within Ontario and within Canada. And so as I look back on my life and all those generations of things that I went through, I found I learned a lot, and we managed to pull Canada to a point where it's now safe for young people. And I love talking to young people and working with young people, helping them come out and helping them navigate the systems out there, because quite often they still have to go through homelessness, they still have to go through mental health issues, and there's sometimes still incarceration involved. But having done it makes me a very good elder to that community, and I very much look forward to the rest of my life doing more of that work and reaching out to the young people.
Lots of language about finding community. So I want to stick with you for just a second, Steph. The term chosen family is one that we use a lot in our big community and smaller communities. What does that mean to you, and how has that concept changed over your lifetime?
Thank you. The term chosen family is, for me, what I looked for when I lost my immediate family. When I was floundering, it was initially doctors and homeless women that I was spending my time with and bonding with and sharing experiences and celebrating each other's lives and milestones. But it was very different than what it was like for being a parent for 23 years, where we were celebrating birthdays and weddings and anniversaries and stuff like that. I missed all 3 of my daughter's weddings because I'm transgender. I missed my father's funeral because I'm transgender. But I've been invited to other people's weddings, and I was able to participate here at MCC with others getting married. I was able to come here and celebrate people's lives that had passed away, even though I couldn't celebrate my nephew and my father had passed away. And being trans, you don't get invited to that because I'm an embarrassment. And here, I'm not an embarrassment. Here I am a person, I'm valued, and I forget that I'm trans. I actually enjoy my life now.
That's wonderful, Steph. I love Steph's involvement here at MCC Toronto. I have to put in a plug for one of my favorite things that she brings us at MCC Toronto. How many of you were here on Pentecost Sunday a couple of weeks ago? Dina and I were wearing these amazing red chasubles they're mostly red, but they have this beautiful panel down the front that's little flames. Stephanie made those for us. So, yeah, in terms of this being chosen family, it's a place I'm glad that our paths have crossed. Margie, how have those relationships, like chosen family, friendships, and community, how have those helped shape your journey as an aging LGBTQ plus person?
Well, we have a very wide, diverse group of friends, all ages, from quite young to quite senior, and we enjoy being around people that we admire and care for. And I would have to say that the older my friends are, the more I admire them. We have one friend who's in her 90s, and she inspires me so much, and she's influenced me in the way that I want to be as I age. She was still dragon boating in her 70s. She was still golfing in her 90s. She was always busy. And she told me that the secret to having a good life is to have friends who are younger than you, to keep you active and to keep you interested. And she did so many things. And during the activities that she had when she was younger, she grew a circle of friends. And now that she's in her 90s, those friends are still with her. And, you know, we visit her. She's included in dinners, in outings, especially casinos. And she's a real inspiration. For younger groups, it's the other direction. We go golfing with them. We go on hikes with them to different locations outside of Toronto. They experiences are in dating, and because now it's all, you know, you get on an app to find a date, and they really entertain us. The different antics that people get up to, not necessarily them, but people that they encounter. And the same, my friend in her 90s and my friend in their 30s, they come over to dinner at the same time because I want each of them to experience each other and for everybody to be included. And I don't think I really thought about it before. I did now when I was preparing for this, but yeah, I want the generations to learn from each other because I have.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I'm at this really interesting phase of life. Like, I'm right on the cusp of Gen X and millennials, you know, and so I'm pretty solidly in middle age. And what I'm discovering is that I have these two generations to choose from that offer me these glimpses of joy and inspiration because, gosh, the folks in their 20s and 30s give me so much inspiration, but then folks that are in their 60s, 70s, 80s do too. So I feel it's like an embarrassment of riches when you get to this point of your life, and you can be encouraged from like both directions. But speaking of joy and encouragement, strength, Ian, what things have brought you the most joy and strength as you've gotten older within the queer community?
I want to piggyback on the family because I have the most incredible biological family ever. And we're very close, they're hugely supportive, and I don't take that for granted because I know that there's so many who don't have that. But they have, all members of my family have been with me through thick and thin. And I now don't have to hide. Back then I did, but I now don't have to hide. And that brings me a lot of joy. Then I have my own immediate family that I've created. Gotten married here in this church, actually, 12 years ago, perhaps. And, you know, that my immediate family brings me huge joy. But I want to put a plug for us who have just come to Canada, because we've uprooted ourselves and it's an entirely new experience. And how do we form relationships? How do we create this chosen family that works for us now? And because many of us have had to flee, we have had to dump some of what we know culturally, when we come to Canada now, how do we create those relationships? And I take a lot of joy when I see people who have, for example, lived in the shelters together. They've stuck together year in, year out. They're friends, that's the family. I know people who slept on the streets when they arrived here, and that has bonded them, that experience. They are the groups of people who have dinner together, who go out together. And then I like a generation, and it gives me a lot of joy to see a generation of newcomers who are experiencing Canada together, holding each other's hands to navigate some of what goes on in Canada. Some of the things we didn't know about, never done before, but holding each other's hands and creating this new family. And it's fantastic. You know, when you go to these gatherings and you see people dancing up a storm and cooking, you know, the food of their cultures and enjoying themselves, you think, wow, that's good. Last year, I'm a big MCC follower, you know that, I'm your number one fan. Last year for Pride, when we had that church service on the streets, it was incredible to see that huge family of people who came together because they sing and they were performing, and people who come together because they cook, and people who come together because we're going to fight for the rights. Those, for me, are the kernel of creating a family here and doing the things that can make us happy, that bring us joy. And joy, even though many of us might be separated from our biological family, might be separated from our cultures, it is creating in this our own oasis. It is saying to others, I don't care what the hell you think. We are going to protect each other, we're going to have fun, and we're going to teach each other how to navigate Canada. And I get a lot of joy from that, personally. In fact, you asked the question, and this is the answer. I am able to say, well, hell, I can grow old, I can retire, because there's a bunch of people, you know, this battalion of people who are going to take it on, not going to take it for granted, not going to take it for granted, hearing, respecting, and reverencing what you have had to go through for us, but you're going to take it and run with it and preserve the rights so it's better for the generation coming after us. And I love that.
For sure. I love the way you can witness community growing in a place like MCC Toronto, because it can be hard. I'm not from Canada either. It can be hard to find your people, and this is a great place to find your people. And there are lots of other places too. I got some questions that are for everybody, so just speak up as you're able. You've been involved in different types of fights, different types of struggles throughout your life. What were the fights back then, and how have they changed, and what are the fights now?
Can I start? That question really resonates with me, because the back then was 10, 15 years ago for us in the trans community. The fights were to protest and be part of that voice that demanded that we be heard, that we be respected, that we get human rights. Marching at the G8, G20 for gender justice, being part of the Occupy Toronto movement as a trans person, asking for the government to recognize us and make us part of the 99%. And then one thing that gave me a lot of joy back then was in 2011, against all odds, everyone was saying it couldn't be done, but we'd never taken the trans march down Yonge Street. And I just felt that that's something that I needed to do. And we took the trans march down Yonge Street with the support of the Toronto Police, and they shut down the street for us. And we played Lily Allen's FU the whole way down the street. And that was a pivotal point in forcing the government, the police, society to treat us as equals. Because we were told we can march down Church Street. We're more than welcome to blend in with all the revelers on Church Street. But to actually have the street like every other march, it really solidified the fact that we are a community. And we had, at that time, we might have had 1,000 people march down Yonge Street with us. Now, if you go this year and watch the trans march on the 27th, you'll see there's at least 10,000 people marching down Yonge Street. You'll see young people. Thank you. You'll see young people. You'll see old people. You'll see friends and allies and families all marching proudly. When I was young, my first 23 years of my life, I was ashamed of who I was. Then I was scared of who I was. And now I'm proud of who I am. And that, for all that to happen in one generation, it's fragile. I'll admit it's not safe after seeing what's happened south of the border. As of last November, I've decided I have to become an activist again. I handed off the second march to a young person and said, here's the keys to my truck, here's everything you need, I'll be in the march, you lead the march. And I thought we had I thought it was one and done, and we'd be finished. But it wasn't. It continues to get eroded. Donald Plett, the senator who made the Canadian human rights fight all about bathrooms, he was scary. And I went and I argued with him about his misconception of what a women's shelter looks like with a trans person in it, what bathrooms look like with trans women in them, and how trans women are not the predators that he made us out to be. We're not these demons that people were trying to portray us as. It was a fight that we could have lost. Every challenge that we've faced, they could have said, no, you can't go down Yonge Street, and we're going to arrest you. They could have said, you're not allowed in a women's shelter, we're going to arrest you. They could have said, no, we're not going to give you human rights. But they didn't. And people have tried to erode those rights, and here in Canada we've stood strong, and we've had our government and our public sector and our friends and families stand up with us. And I really believe I can spend the rest of my life being an activist, because the odds of me being arrested now are very slim. And I feel safe again. Thanks.
Back when I was in my 20s, back when I was in my 20s and 30s, the biggest issue for us was safety. We had no protections for rental housing, health care, workplaces, and even protection against the police for violence. They just figured that we were a subculture. They considered us deviants who didn't matter. I worked at Toronto City Hall for almost 20 years, and one of my positions there was a recruitment officer, and I represented women, minorities, and people with disabilities to help them get employment. There was never any mention of LGBTQ. We weren't even considered. There was one time when I was so proud, there was a counselor, his name was Kyle Ray, and he was a gay man. He represented downtown Toronto, and he brought in a trans woman as part of his team. Now, Counselors Row, you had all the counselors' offices and all their teams with them. They had one men's washroom, one women's washroom, and the admin assistants, and I don't know if it was other people at that time, really rebelled against this trans woman using their washroom. And we fought in a different way because the world wasn't a safe place for us. We helped each other find alternatives. And she was kept on as staff. No way was Kyle ever going to give that up, but they found an alternative washroom for her. And that's what organizations did then. We had an organization on Yonge Street above a bar called CHAT, Canadian Homophile Association of Toronto. And that's what they did. They found alternatives. If we couldn't find housing, they found safe housing for us. There was less of a challenge, whereas now, if somebody goes and is denied an apartment, and they get somebody, and they say, no, the apartment's already gone, and then we'd send somebody else in there who could pass and got the apartment, then we would lay a complaint with the Landlord and Tenant Association. We also didn't have protection in health care, and I believe that that's still an issue now. We had a friend that was suffering severe pain in her foot. Her doctor said, go to Emerge. I don't know what it is, go to Emerge. So she went to Emerge, had the x-rays done, and the chief of the emergency department was the one who was seeing her, and he said, you have broken bones in your foot. He put her in a walking cast and she had a conference to go to in Europe somewhere. So she flew to Europe, came back, and her foot was still aching and aching. So she went back to the emergency department, saw another doctor who went back and looked at the x-rays and said, I don't know how anybody could have mistaken this. There's no broken bones in your foot, you have blood clots. And she had flown with blood clots in a boot. Now, she wasn't the type of person to take this laying down, so she called me and she asked if I knew any lawyers that could represent her in an issue like this. And I didn't, but I knew people who might know. So she got a lawyer and she went after him. She went to the Ontario Physicians organization. I can't remember the name of it, sorry. And he got a reprimand. It was on his file, and he had to write her a letter of apology. And I just thought that was so brave of her to do that, to take on the Ontario Physicians and Surgeons Association. But it's so difficult to prove. If you get diagnosed, or if you're made to wait an hour longer, that may impact your life. How do you prove that? And that's something that we really have to look at. And I think that the focus now for younger people is they have to pay attention to what's happening in other parts of the world, what's happening in the States, especially with trans people, because once they go after trans people, they're not going to stop there. They're going to come after all of us, and we are an us. We definitely are an us. In England, who's the Harry Potter author? J.K. Rowling. She is spending her money funding LGBTQ organizations to take the T off of their organizations, and she will give them money to fund their organizations because of her feelings about trans women. We have to be aware of that because our rights and privileges are rights, and they should not be taken away, but that doesn't mean that there's not jerks out there that will try. And we have to be aware of that and never take our rights and privileges for granted.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Yeah.
When I left Jamaica to come here, I thought I was going to retire. I was going to shut up. I'd done it for 40 years. I didn't want to hear any more of it. And then I came to Canada, and I realized the more things change, the more they remain the same. It's a different era, but the issues are the same. And when I hear some stories like the one you just told, I think, oh my God, when I was trying to find a house to rent, now as I told you, I had a job. Do you know what the agent told me? Take your husband's name off and put your sister-in-law's name on it, because you both have the same last name, and they will think you're husband and wife. This is in Canada. In 2020, 5 years ago, 2020. That had never happened to me in Jamaica. And here I was coming to freedom and was being told to compromise myself and to put women at risk again. And that's just my story. Many people who come through this incredible refugee program cannot find housing because of your color, and worse yet, because you're trans. Last week I had a trans woman, the landlord asked, are you a man or a woman? In Canada in 2025. And I could go on. And the springboard for me, of course, has been HIV. And when we're seeing the highest numbers of persons testing positive upon arrival, because Canada still has that backwards rule that says everybody must be tested for HIV. One of the only countries in the world, you must get tested. And many people are finding out their HIV status coming here. And whether you like it or not, the services are not what we think they are. People are still struggling to get treatment, to get medication, to see doctors. The more things change, the more they remain the same. And and I know I'm talking particularly to my brothers and sisters who are newcomers, because a lot of what happens to us is we say, guess what? I'm not rocking this boat. I just want to get my PR and my citizenship. I'm not rocking this boat. Give it to me and I'll be all right. So we remain quiet. And we don't go to the march like we're having on the 20th. And we're afraid to be seen in pride. And we're afraid to confront these landlords and to say, you're doing an unjust thing, because we're afraid that they're going to deport us. And some of us tell ourselves that within our communities, oh, don't say anything, keep quiet, be a nice little girl, behave yourself, cross your legs, and act straight, and everything will be all right. You may want to do something after you've gotten your citizenship. That might just be too late, because we're seeing right in front of our eyes on a daily basis the threat, the fragility of some of these things you have fought for. The fragility of the things you have banged your head against the wall for 20 years. And right now, this generation is saying, oh my God, we could lose this if we're not careful. My last point is going to be about being complicit, because some of us are rubbing shoulders to shoulders and endorsing some campaigns that are against us, and we're not realizing that. We're saying yes to politicians who are not saying yes about us. They're not defending us on their platforms, and we're handing them the microphone and the cameras when they come. And it seems as if they're fighting for our rights, and they are not. Our eyes have to be open. And I want to thank my elders who have struggled for us. We have an obligation to ensure that we keep that fire burning. If we turn our eyes off it, if we squint for a minute, we could easily lose it. Look what's happening across the border. Wake up. Wake up, new generation. Age right now is not a chronological order. It is about a new generation that is being given a baton. It's been passed to us as newcomers to Canada, and we have to protect it. We have to make sure that it's not eroded, and we don't contribute to it being eroded.
Thank you. So I'd like you each to speak specifically to the social needs of the aging LGBTQ population. Like, what are those needs? What's your impression of those? How do we address those?
I think the number one, well, it depends on your socioeconomic situation. If you have money, then obviously you can get more. If you don't, then your life is harder. I think that social isolation is one of the biggest things, and especially for LGBTQ older people, we do not have retirement homes that are dedicated to us. But we do have a friend of ours who recently went into a retirement home, and I was very, very happy to see that they were celebrating Pride Month. They have little posters up with people, actors, professional athletes, politicians who are gay, and they're having a day. They asked this friend of ours if she would speak to her life being lesbian. And I was really, really pleased to see that, but I think that a lot of people don't have that. And I think that what you do when you're younger affects what you do when you're older. You have to join groups, whatever you like to do, whether it's pickleball, whether it's a book club, whether it's a knitting group, anything that helps you socialize. Steph and I bowled for 25 years. I didn't care about bowling. I cared about the socialization. And we still have those friends in our lives. Steph dragon boated for many years, and we still have those friends in our lives. And more importantly, MCC Toronto. Yeah. We have so many friends and acquaintances that we can call on, and I think that including people that we know now who are aging and we don't know their situation, reach out and invite them to somewhere. Get them connected with each other. We do have a seniors group here that is being built and growing, and there are activities, but I think that's one of the most important things for an aging population now.
I'd like to add to what Margie said. Isolation is really, really harmful to our physical and mental health. And getting out there and getting involved does give you a social calendar and a social agenda, and it also connects you with people that will keep you from being isolated. When I was at Occupy, one of the Indigenous elders turned to me after a storm when a bunch of trees were knocked over and said, "Who's going to teach the young trees when the old trees are gone?" We are all someone else's older tree. Doesn't matter what generation we are. Reach out to the young trees. Get involved. I've been joining groups at the universities where they're my children's age. They're my grandchildren's age. I'm part of a group where we're trying to get the new majority, it's called, which is young people, to get involved in politics and teach them how to address issues and get encouraged. But we have to be a catalyst to those people. And guess what? When you do reach out to them, they respond. And they're going to be our elders one day, or someone's elder one day, someone's old tree. And I think that it's so important that we not only support each other within the community, that we reach out to allies that are not in the community, but that we activate the young people to continue our work for the betterment of a generation that hasn't been born yet, that this world will be a better and safer place for everybody. Thank you.
Aging can have a terrifying tremor for many of us. Terrifying. And again, I'm going to swing to the, to the newcomer community. Pension. What have I accumulated? What am I going to fall back on? Who is it from my family who is going to be there to help me walk, to clean me? All of these are terrifying thoughts. And we see generally that some of the benefits, for example, ODSP for seniors gets less, all right? At a time when you can't work and you need more, you're getting less. So those are some of the things that flash across our screens regularly. When we advocate for work, for good, meaningful work, it is about how do we earn to be able to live well here. And what we constantly realize is that many of us are living way, way, way below the minimum. So many people, there's some horror stories, again, for migrants, and I put it on the table. Because if we don't know, we just don't know. There are places where a bed is being shared by multiple people. Some have to sleep morning to afternoon, go out to get work, and somebody else sleeps in that bed afternoon to evening. And landlords are charging for that bed $1,200. Each person has to split that right here. So when we see those prospects, we think, oh God, what am I going to have to fall back on as I age? What? And for many of us, the prospects look dim. So the advocacy for ODSP rights, the advocacy for housing rights, the advocacy for good, decent jobs is very important so that that can change to absorb our needs.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to ask one more question. It's a two-part question, and then we'll open up to some audience questions if you all have them. I want to end my questions on a hopeful note. So, two things. What's a change that you've seen happen over your lifetime as you've aged that gives you hope for the future? And then two, what is a hopeful message that you want to pass on to the younger queer people that might be here today?
I'll start again. What gives me hope is seeing the young people now accept gender as a non-binary, that it's fluid, that it's a spectrum, that you're allowed to self-identify and you're allowed to express yourself. And you're living in a world that is questioning, why is it a binary? Why is it got to be heterosexual and homosexual? Why can't it be a spectrum? We're seeing young people that are coming up with new terms and new terminology to express who they are sexually, their gender, everything about themselves is being questioned and expressed, and it's safe to do so, and it's wonderful to see. We have a group here at MCC, it's the Trans-Spirituality group, and we have young people there that are coming in, and those of us that are older are talking about being scared and having to find ourselves and come out of the closet. And here's young people that don't even know what the closet is. They're singing, they're cheering, they're celebrating, they're dancing. They're just happy that they are who they are, and they didn't have to break down those barriers. It's been done. What I hope for, the second part of the question was what I hope for the...
What brings you hope?
What's a message that you would pass along to younger queer people?
Thank you. If I had to pass a message on to younger people, well, I will, and I am passing on this message. You have every right to be whatever it is that you want to be. Quite often, young people think they need elderly people's permission to do things, and they don't. They are the teachers too. They will teach us as much as we can teach them, and they have every right to teach us their perspective, because guess what? One day we won't be here, and they are going to be in charge, and their reality will become reality, because there's no one there to oppose them, no one there to oppress them, and there's no one there to stop them. So teach them early to have a voice, to use that voice, and help others and make this world a better place.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you.
My advice to young people today, LGBTQ people, is to enjoy your life now. Enjoy the things that we didn't have, that we fought for. They can get married. We couldn't when we were younger. They can have children. They can adopt children. There's so many things that they have that we didn't have. And that really makes me happy. At the same time, I think they should still plan for their older years. The things that they do when they're young dramatically affect how their lives are going to be when they're older. And as I've said before, joining groups, being part of your community. Just because we're accepted, we can go into straight bars now and nobody bothers us. What we've lost is we had gay bars, and they were a lot of fun, and we were safe, and we knew each other. Now it's become very distributed so that it's harder for our community, except online, to know each other. And when you do it online, you don't know who that other person is. But yeah, we've lost those connections because it was just fun having an all LGBTQ event. And we've lost that to a degree. I think, as we've all said before, times can change, and they need to be very aware of what's happening in other parts of the world. And they need to stand up for themselves, and they need to stand up for us too.
Yeah, thanks. I feel like I need to put in a plug for joining choirs. Choirs are, I know, but we have like 3 choirs here at MCC Toronto. But then I know of like 3 or 4 other like LGBTQ choirs around the city. And sometimes when you've experienced, you know, Stephanie, you talked a lot about it, when you've experienced getting pushed out of your community, you're more highly motivated to build community elsewhere. And I'm always amazed. I play in the Women's Hockey Collective of Toronto, which is a hockey league for queer women and allies. It's existed for like 30-something years. And man, I've made some good friends there. And I couldn't tell you, we did win a championship last year, but the most important thing was afterwards we all went to Banknote Bar and we got a drink. But yeah, we're really motivated to find community.
Yeah. My wife, Stephanie, decided we should start playing pickleball. And the first time we did that was Pride Pickleball, where it was all gay. And when we couldn't get the space for that anymore, she found another group that was closer to our home, and I walked in there, and it was all straight. And I thought, oh, this is going to be boring. And I didn't feel as comfortable reaching out and talking to them, but it happened over time. And then it happened that there was another lesbian couple there who approached us, and they live right near us. So that was a good thing. We also have a group that's hosted by friends of ours, Texas Hold'em.
Oh, that's fun.
Which is poker.
Yeah.
Poker for older ladies. And we have a good time. It's something, we look forward to it, and it's just fun getting together with other people. And like you say, choirs, libraries are a great source of something to do that's free. Our libraries have expanded so wonderfully. They have free tickets to about 17 different events around Toronto. You can get free tickets to go to the zoo, to museums, anything that's funded by government. And they hand out these tickets at the first of the month. You have to call early, but it doesn't matter whether you're a millionaire or not. And you can get these tickets and do things. They also have evening entertainment. If they have someone who works for the library that plays guitar, they'll give you guitar lessons. They'll help you fill out forms if you're applying for anything. So don't wait for people to approach you. Approach other people. Ask them what they do. Start your own groups doing something that you like to do. And those friendships will continue. We've had friends that we've known for 40 plus years, from playing baseball, doing all these things, and that's what I would recommend for them now, for their own personal lives.
Thanks. Ian, something that gives you hope and a word for the younger generation.
A lot has changed. We have come here, and this is a whole new world. So this is fantastic, and the opportunities are, endless. And there's a lot that we do that's just great, and it's important that we, preserve this. What gives me hope are, Kenyatta and the team here, this young battalion of people who are just making life better for so many of us. I love that, I love that. It's the only reason I leave my office at 12 on a Tuesday to come and sit on a panel, because of the hope that gives. There's a hope in a world that has so many other things. I just find hope in that. And that people can sit here and be tense because it's our first time talking about some of these things, and in a couple months have just blossomed. And that gives me a lot of hope. And I say thanks for creating this safe space. This space is sacred. This space is sacred because the transformation in people's lives, please don't take that for granted. It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful
thing. And the message is exactly that to the next generation. Go for it. Go for it. Just make it better for yourself and make it better for others. Please go for it.
Amen. All right. Well, thanks, panelists. I loved what I heard. I think you probably did too. I wonder if any of you have questions for our panelists. Kenyatta, I think, is going to run the mic for us.
Hello, thank you. What a wonderful group. Proud Voices continues to put these events together, and this is very, very informative and very helpful. And it's also wonderful to see the bridging between the congregation of MCC and the Human Rights Center. So thank you for practicing what you preach to the Human Rights Center. I have two questions. There's some amazing stories up there. I'm wondering if anyone on the panel has ever written or documented their story for public distribution. That's my first question. My second question is housing. As you age, it appears to me that many are looking at sharing space with non-immediate family. We're kind of used to sharing it with our immediate family, but it becomes out of economics, out of physical health, mental health, et cetera, Have we seen any solutions in the GTA where shared spaces of housing are working and working well? And if so, what do they look like? So the two questions.
I'll take that plug. I have done a lot of media outreach. I've done, I think, 5 documentaries, and I do a lot of public speaking to young people. And I've also written a book, Holding On by a Thread, which, thank you. It's been out for a year now, and it's doing very well. And I get to share my story, which is empowering, because there's nothing worse than learning something and not being able to share what you've learned. And I think by writing it down and making it available to everybody, it will help other people navigate, and it'll also help people understand where we're coming from. But as far as housing goes, my personal situation with housing is it's very fragile. I live in a private setting where I honestly believe my landlord does not like me because of my gender identity, and I've been threatened 3 times. I've gone to court to keep my residence, and they've just 2 weeks ago sent me another letter saying they want me to move out, and so I'll be going to court again. But it's hard to build a home in a place where you're not wanted. And I think this time I'm going to not only ask that my housing be safe and secure, but I'm going to ask that there be repercussions for my landlord because of what they're doing to me. And the only reason it's only been 4 times is because for 4 years, 4 summers, 4 years, our building's been under construction and we've been barricaded inside our building. And prior to that, it was COVID, so they couldn't kick me out. But now that the construction is done, I think the unit is more valuable, and they would like to access higher rents for the space I'm using. And I'll be 62 this year. It's hard for me to find housing that is safe And I get along with my neighbors. I pay my rent on time. My place should be safe, but a landlord that I've never met has taken it upon themselves to persecute and attack. And I will set an example this time with them, because I think it's my job. Whether I lose my apartment or not, I will pursue the fact that they are being prejudiced and hateful to a minority, and they do not have the right to do that, not here in Canada. I don't know if anyone will stand with me in my building. I think there's 3 other units that have agreed with me, and we need to stop the harassment of our community and help those people evolve. Like, it's the 21st century now. It's time to evolve and make housing a right, not a privilege.
To add on to what Stephanie is saying, my knowledge is limited. I do some workshops, and I do keep people updated on the rent situation. The average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in Toronto is about $2,500. The average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is about $3,200. So I tell people it's a better value for your money if you can find someone that you can rent a 2-bedroom apartment for than a 1. My experience with a lot of refugees is that unfortunately they do leave Toronto and go to another smaller town or city where there is more subsidized housing. And one of the singers that I don't know if she still sings for us, she was born and raised in Toronto, and she lived in an apartment building with her husband for about 25 years, and the landlord decided that he was going to renovate the whole place and gave notice to everybody who lived there. And I believe that Olivia Chow now has a group that is working against renoviction. So I think if you're personally having problems with that, contact her office, and I'm sure that they will forward you to that group that's working on it.
No book, no documentary, nothing. Too lazy to do any of that. It won't happen. Housing is a big premium. I mean, big premium. And this is where many of us get into situations with other people who out us, who send messages back to our family home. You know, many people who are coming out of the shelter situation end up going into a rental agreement with somebody they knew in the shelter, and it's a nightmare in many cases for LGBTQI plus folk. So it's a hard thing. In addition to that, getting the money, earning honestly the money to pay the rent, it is abominable. And we have friends here who have been taken for a ride by landlords, promised this place, shown one that doesn't exist, given keys for one that don't fit, a whole host of things. So it's very hard. And it's something we have to be aware of, you know. Many times we hear somebody who's saying, my landlord is friendly and wants LGBTQI plus folk to occupy it. And we say, oh, good, let's recommend that person. That's once in a lifetime that those opportunities arise. But if we do hear of those safe spaces, please let us know, but it's not good. And many people move to smaller towns where the scrutiny is worse. It's harsh. The safety is worse. So, you know, in fact, the housing establishment is telling us, go to Niagara, rent in Niagara, because there are more units there. Or go to Windsor or wherever, and then you walk there and people start to give you the eye. So it's not easy.
Other questions from yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing your stories and that. You all spoke about having to give up privileges to be your authentic selves. And I wonder what advice you might give to newcomers and other people who are fearing for their safety and want to like hide and things like that. What advice could you give to help them, to help us all to, in this changing world where rights are being retracted, to continue doing this work, to speak out, to march, to
I can take that. I know part of when several of us speak, several people in the room, sometimes when we speak, what we leave people with is the impression that you must do it the same thing. Activists leave that smell. You have to do it. If you don't come out, then you're not as good as I am. If you don't join the brigade, then you're not worthy. And I apologize, because that's not the message that we intend. Activism takes place on different levels. And I know it would be disingenuous for us to sit up here and say, go march on the 28th, or whatever the date is, or go to the all-out rally on the 20th. Come out. We will say that, but we can't force you, because I know many of you sitting here, many of us sitting here, are afraid of the camera that's going live, because it's going live into our districts, into our villages, where our families are still in danger. So it's not easy, even though we're in this society that's supposed to be free. So what we're saying when we talk about activism is, there are many of us here who will be at the forefront of it. We will be at the forefront, but support us. You know, we're working, Susan and several people, including MCC, we're working on the rally. And there are many people behind the scenes making message boards, who are going to be serving meals. Everybody can get involved. And involvement doesn't mean you have to face the media. Involvement doesn't mean you need to be saying it. But get involved. There's some petitions that are going around. People who are facing deportation. Right now, the highest rate of deportation ever is taking place. Many people who we see today are gone tomorrow here in Canada. We think it's only happening in the US. Here in Canada. Sign a petition. Sign a petition. So there are a host of things you can do behind the scenes. We're not telling everybody, you must. No, please. But do something. All right? That's what I would say.
One other thing I'd like to add to that is, advocacy does not necessarily mean going out and changing the world. Sometimes it's self-advocacy. Find your community. It doesn't have to be public. It doesn't have to be splashed out there changing the world. Change within yourself. Feel safe. Find the people who you identify with, people who are allies to you, and people who will make you feel whole. And it will help you live longer. And if you do self-advocacy, I think it can be very safe, because I know a lot of groups that have no intention of ever standing in front of a camera or marching down the street, but they will put up a flag in a room that represents our community, and they will say, you're welcome here. And that's one way to move forward and live your life to its fullest. Thanks.
Let's take one more audience question. Did I see another hand? Yeah. Do we have the mic?
It's not really a question, but at one point you were talking about housing, and about a year and a half ago, I went through one of my depressive episodes, and I decided to look for a house for the residence for elders, for senior citizens, because I'm also I'm also disabled, and it won't take long before someone will be helping me get dressed and feed me. And so I was looking through places that were as close to my house and to my siblings' houses as possible. And there's a place called oh gosh, now what's called? It's on Sumac. And I went and I had a tour of that place. And one of my questions was, how big is the LGBT community here? And she said that there was quite a large LGBT community. So if ever in the next couple of years I go back around, I will very well take another tour of that place, because that would be one of my my needs. But there are there are some. There are probably not very many, but there are some.
Nice to have a choice.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And can we hear it one more time for our wonderful panelists and their... Thanks so much. Thank you for being here. We're going to be entertained now by a special guest. Fleur Fantasy is with us. I'm going to hand...
Jameson, ready?
They say time fades all things, but not love, and definitely not truth, and not the brilliance of those who dared to live out loud before the world was ready to listen. This tribute is not a goodbye. It's a thank you to the warriors who danced before pride was a parade, who kissed in shadows and loved through laws, who taught us that strength isn't loud. Instead, it's consistent. That being fabulous isn't about the spotlight. It's about surviving when the world tried to dim you. Your scars are your roadmaps. Your silence, resistance. And your resilience is the reason I stand here today, proud, free, and glorious. So today, I don't just perform a song. I carry a message. One of strength, one of love, one of dignity. This is for those who tried it on their own, so I could try it in the light.
So long ago,
It's over now. I can't go back to living through your eyes. Too many lies. And if you don't know by now, I can't go back to being someone else. Not anymore. I never had the chance to do things my way. So now it's time for me to take control. And I am not afraid to try it on my own. I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I'll live my life the way I feel. No matter what, I'm gonna keep it real. You know, time for me to do it. Oh, start again, go back to one. I'm running things in my way. Can't stop me now, I've just begun. Don't even think about it, there ain't no way around it. I'm taking names, don't worry mine. Yes, I'm gonna take my turn. It's time for me to finally stand alone. Stand alone. To try it on my own. And I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I'll live my life the way I feel. No matter what, I'm gonna keep it real. You know, it's time for me to do it. See, I'm not afraid to try it on my own. And I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I'll live my life the way I feel. No matter what, I wanna keep it real. You know, it's time for me to do it on my own. Hey, on my own.
No, cut. Hello, everyone. How we doing? All right. You are all beautiful people and amazing in your own special way. I'm happy you enjoyed the performance. Now it's tea time. So go over to the booth and enjoy some nice, refreshing tea and other snacks. Thank you. I am your drag queen for the day. My name is Fleur Fantasy, and I am the ecstasy to your wildest dreams. Mwah!
give you the hug because I couldn't see your face. I couldn't see your face.
You said I'm just curious, is this for real or just an I can't tell if you love or hate me. Never met someone like that. Got me so crazy. Did you know you got that effect? I said, let me check.
Were you at the Wellness Family Party?
First of all, that was a setup so you could sell books, okay? Number two, my question was, are there solutions out there in the market for housing? And the answer is no. Shared space for people who are, they're forced to. But there's different shared spaces. Good, I have different. Junior, thank you. Did you enjoy?
I'll explode like a dynamite if I can't decide, baby. My head and my heart are torturing me, yeah. Lost my mind in your arms. I go to extreme, yeah. When angels tell me run, and monsters calling love. My head and my heart are caught in between, yes or no? Asking the heavens, should I stay or should I go? You held my hand when I had nothing left to hold, and now I'm on a roll. My mind's got my mind of its own right now, and it makes me hate me. I'll explode like a dynamite if I can't decide, baby. My head and my heart are torturing me, yeah. Lost my mind in your arms. I go to extreme, yeah. When angels tell me run, and monsters calling love. My head and my heart are caught in between, I'm standing at the crossroads. I cross my heart with X's and O's. Which way leads to forever? My head and my heart are torturing me, yeah. Lost my mind in your arms. I go to extreme, yeah. When angels tell me run, and monsters calling love. My head and my heart are caught in between, you know you can call me if you need someone. I'll pick up the pieces if you come undone.
Where are you going with me?
Painting stars up on your ceiling 'cause you wish that you could find some feeling. Yeah, you know you could call me if you need someone. I need you to
Hello. Hello. If anybody would like t-shirts, please come over to see me in the Welcome Center here.
be so
It's stuck with you forever, so promise you won't let it go. I'll trust the universe will always bring me to you. I'll imagine we fell in love on that wonder moonlight skies with you. I think I'll picture us here with the waves, the ocean's colors on your face. I'll leave my heart with your hand, so let me fly with you. Will you be forever with me?
Is this for you here?
Just what you want. Don't leave me drowning. Don't let me Don't hold it back like that. Just pull me closer, baby. Oh no. Let's make the most of this before it's over. Don't wanna waste a feel like we can make it real. Don't wanna wait when you could be loving me since too busy reading minds. Already made it here. Don't overthink when you could be loving me. Get me started before this started. I could be giving someone all of me, totally. Don't hold it back like that. Just pull me closer, baby. Better make the most of this before it's over. Don't wanna waste a feel like we can make it real. Don't wanna wait when you could be loving me since too busy reading minds. Already made it here. Don't overthink when you could be loving me.
Billboard, baby.
Good afternoon.
Oh, I leave quite an impression. 5 feet to be exact. You're wondering why half is closed when missing my body's where they're at. Now I'm gone, but you're still laying next to me. 1 degree of separation. I put you back together, and if that's true, you'll just have to taste me when he's kissing you. If you want forever. his hair. Just know I was already there. You can love him if you like. I've been there, done that once or twice. And singing about it don't mean I care. Yeah, I know I've been known to share. Well, I heard you're back together, and if that's true, you'll just have to tease me when he's kissing you. If you want forever, have it, you do. Just know you'll taste me too. You'll just have to taste me when he's kissing you. You'll just have to taste me when he's kissing you. Cause it's a beautiful night, and I've been waiting for years for you. Hey baby, I know I wanna marry you. Is it the look in your eyes? Who you are is shining through. I know, baby, I know I wanna marry you. Well, I know this little chapel on the boulevard we can go. They'll all say you glow. You're a star, girl. They'll make their glasses clink so we kiss till they blush pink. Dip your love.
I got a photo of you.
a look inside your heart. Is there any room for me? I would have to hold my breath till you get down on one knee, because you only want to hold me when I'm looking good enough. Did you ever fool me? Would you ever picture us? Every time I pull my hair, was only out of fear that you'll find me ugly and one day you'll disappear. Because what's the point of crying? It was never even love. Did you ever want me? Was I ever good enough? But boy's a liar. But boy's a liar. He doesn't see ya. You're not looking at me, boy. But boy's a liar. But boy's a liar. He doesn't see ya. You're not looking at me, boy. Good enough, good enough, good enough, good enough, good enough. Baby, please, I just want to look nice for you. Come stay with me. Oh, you're not around, so what should I do? I thought you liked the look about a girl just like me. Baby, please, I know you want to change me. Can you take a look inside your heart? Is there any room for me? I would have to hold my breath till you get down on one knee, because what's the point of crying? It was never even love. Did you ever want me? Was I ever good enough? But boy's a liar. But boy's a liar. He doesn't see ya. You're not looking at me, boy. But boy's a liar. But boy's a liar. He doesn't see ya. You're not looking at me, boy. Good enough, 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 good enough. Just what you wanted. So don't leave me drowning. Don't let me down. Don't hold it back, but then just pull me closer, baby. Oh, let's make the most of this before it's over. Don't wanna waste a feel like we can make it real. Don't wanna wait when you could be loving me since. Too busy reading minds. Already made it here. Don't overthink when you could be loving me.
A long, long time ago lived a drag queen who wanted to be famous. She danced every night, lip-synced until her voice cracked. A long, long time ago lived a drag queen who wanted to be famous. She danced every night, lip-synced until her voice cracked, but still no break. Until one day, she discovered a talent show. She signed up hurriedly and her journey began. She said to herself, I wonder what song I should use.
Who let the dogs out? 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 Who let the dogs out?
Oh girl, this one is a hard pass. Maybe this one, she said.
Holy God.